All right, everybody, welcome to an episode of Just Love Inspires. I am Jessica, and I would love to welcome my guest, Sandy, from Explain Your Show, Sandy. On the Sofa with Saus, right?
Absolutely.
And what kind of things do you talk about on your show?
So on my platform, I talk about real, live, everyday stuff with real people.
Yeah. Which is what we're doing here, obviously.
Absolutely.
Right?
Having a conversation about what's going on, what's happening, how do you feel, how do you respond, how do you react, that whole scenario.
Right. I love it. That's the kind of girl I am. So I knew that you would be perfect for this conversation based off of that.
Yes.
So today we're going to cover a topic that I call the F word. And the F word is
forgiveness.
That's right. Not the ones y'all thought, right?
Tricked y'all.
This is a different F word, but nevertheless can be the same level of intimidation, I think.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of start off just with like a general question, just to kind of get the conversation flowing between you and I.
Okay.
I think the best place to start really is, how do you define forgiveness?
So this not a trick question, but I overanalyze everything. Yeah. So I'll just say psychologist defines it as a deliberate and conscious decision to release your feelings of resentment and hatred towards someone that has harmed you or spoke out of turn against you. But when I think about that's what psychologists think. But when I think about forgiveness, for me, it's just being able just to open up and realize that we all fall short, and we all may speak out of turn or do something that hurts someone else intentionally or not, and having the ability to say, oh, I hear what you're saying. You didn't mean that. Let's just come together and let's talk through it and let's move on. That's how I think about forgiveness, having that ability to talk to the person that you may have offended or offended you, and let's come to a common ground and move on.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. It's great to have the scientific version or explanation for forgiveness, because I think that's like really straightforward. And then of course, we know as Christ followers, we have a whole nother level of understanding, which we'll get into in a little bit, about forgiveness. But I loved that your personal definition. For me, I think it's really and I think you kind of mentioned this, I think it's a conscious decision to really let go of something that's hurting me because of what somebody else has done. And it's not saying that behavior is okay. It's not to say that, it's okay that a person got away with something because they hurt or offended me or somebody else. But it's really kind of the old adage of, you can't really drink poison and expect it to hurt somebody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think so many times with unforgiveness, that's what ends up happening, is you hold on to something for so long, and then that bitterness bubbles up inside of you, and then it just starts to rot you from the inside out. Yes. And so for me, defining forgiveness is, I'm going to release that person from owing me anything else so that I can move on. Now, that is easier said than done, but
Absolutely.
For me, that is definitely the definition.
Yeah. And then just to piggyback a little bit what you were saying, when we don't forgive, we've taken on that other person's burden. We've taken it on. So, and we've just even weighted ourselves down even more because we haven't discovered forgiveness or know how to do it or how to give it or how to receive it. And that F word is something else.
That F word is something else. Amen, girl. They don't call it the F word for nothing.
Or for nothing, right.
So the next question then is, and you know, you can definitely speak in general terms. We don't necessarily have to name names, but, and I'll share as well, but describe a time when it was hard to forgive, and how did you get to a place where you could forgive?
So, I
I
think
can't wait to hear this.
you probably know the
Okay.
stories,
Yeah.
but I had to learn to forgive in a church setting, in a Christian setting.
Mhm.
When you love something or you love someone and you've been hurt by that person or that group or that family, those people that you hold dear to you, forgiveness is hard because the first thing you think of is, but I thought I was your girl. I thought I was the one. I thought I was your ride or die. I thought we was all that and then some. And when that hurt comes, it just tears you up even more because you never expected that hurt from that person or that group.
Mhm.
And I've never thought about being hurt. When I've heard people say, oh yeah, I've been hurt by the church, in my mind, I'm like, quit tripping, because the church don't hurt until it happens to you.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you understand, oh my gosh, I know what they meant when they said, you've been hurt by the church.
Yeah.
When something that you love and you understand fully that that's your call and that's how you serve and that's how you give back, and that's been taken away with really no explanation, no follow-up or follow-through from anyone that you thought cared about you, and you were like this in relationship, and you hear nothing, you see nothing, no one says anything, and it's
Yeah.
like that fly on the wall, who's gonna swat it first?
Mhm.
And no one ever swats it. And then you just build up this malice and this hurt, and this just, you got this funky look on your face every time that person comes up or that thing comes up. You just,
Yeah.
until you are able to forgive and understand and try to understand why decisions were made or people moved the way they moved, you're going to carry that unforgiveness and that hurt and that malice until you are able to forgive. And I've forgiven. I've not learned how to move on, but I've forgiven.
Yeah.
And I think part of forgiveness is being able to move on. And I just
Yeah.
haven't mastered it yet. I don't know how.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one. And for any person that's, you know, not a Christian that's listening to this conversation, I think that they could relate in terms of maybe a familial relationship or a work situation that they've been in, or
Mhm.
maybe a nonprofit or another type of organization they've been part of. But back to the church thing. So as we're talking about this, I'm just sharing with people, they can apply these same principles that we're talking about, is that um, there's something called disappointment. I was thinking about it a lot today because I knew that we were going to be talking, and disappointment is really the precursor to pretty much everything that's very painful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you feel disappointed, let down, that can lead to all sorts of, you know, sadness, offense, depression,
Yes.
uncertainty, fear.
Yes.
It can, and it could be all those things
It's a
together.
culmination of everything that you said. It's everything that I felt
Yeah.
in a period of trying to forgive something or somebody.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah. And I think that the thing, and I haven't mastered it either, by the way, but I think the thing that has helped me is changing my expectations. I'm trying to stop expecting, you know, it's like what Maya Angelou said: when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Leave them. See them for who they show you.
Right. And for me, you know, I tend to be, I can get, you know, kind of sassy or whatever, but I tend to be at my core a fairly empathetic, kind of sensitive type of person. And so I'm like almost kind of always expecting other people to be that way. And it's such a hard lesson to learn that ain't nobody care like you.
Nope.
You
Nope.
know, like no one's going to care as much as you do, especially if it's about you and it's personal to you.
Absolutely.
And so therefore you with that, you're always, I guess, setting yourself up for disappointment over and over. And so that was the thing that came to mind when you were sharing that, because I think disappointment is really difficult to get over, but getting past that, realizing, okay, that's who that person is. They've shown me their cards. I know what I'm dealing with. I know who I am, and I know what I can do and who and what I bring to the table. And if that's not desired, then it really just becomes between you and God, or what you personally feel is your decision to whether to remain in a situation or to move forward. I mean, even Jesus himself would go to towns and preach, and they weren't ready to hear what he was saying. And what did the Bible say? He shook off the dust or the dirt off of his sandals and went to the next
and
town.
kept it moving. Exactly.
Yeah. But go ahead.
But I think what you're saying, what is a major contributor to the forgiveness piece, what you were saying, spit it out. See, when I'm thinking of stuff, I got to say it right on the spot.
Was it the disappointment stuff or no?
It was about the disappointment. It's going to come back to me. Keep talking. I'll interject. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think the other part of that too is like, for me, I know, and I want to be real. So I just kind of, say how I am, which is that I kind of think to myself, my first, knee-jerk reaction is, well, if you don't want that, then see ya, deuces. But also sometimes that's not necessarily the best reaction or response to the situation, because as you explained before, sometimes you can come to that meeting table and you can talk about stuff and you can work through it, and you can get to a place where there's a mutual respect and understanding, and there can be some type of compromise. But when there is not, that is when you have to make the decision. And you can forgive and you can love, but you don't necessarily have to trust again.
Ever. I am charged by God. I gotta love you, but I ain't got to like you.
Exactly. And you can love people in the general sense, like we're called to love people.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean you get into the nitty gritty.
No, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not. When I'm in the stages of disappointment that's leading to a cycle of forgiveness for me with someone, that's the whole thing. In my mind, I'm thinking, I already know what I gotta do. I am charged. I have to forgive you.
Yeah.
But after I forgive, don't mean I got to fool with you ever again on that level like that.
Yeah.
Me being intimate with you will never happen again, because you said it. The trust level is nil. I don't know how much, or if I even want to open up again to be susceptible for another disappointment, which is going to lead to another heartbreak, which in turn is going to have to bring in that forgiveness piece again. And when do you stop that cycle?
That's a great question.
When do you stop that cycle?
Because we all know that we're going to have hurts and offenses with everyday relationships we have. I mean, even the people that we are closest to who are going to be in our lives, family or dear friends or whatever, we're going to end up hurting each other. And so forgiveness is always, in operation, unless you're a grudge holder and then you're tallying up the score constantly and you're bringing it back.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you did. This is what you did. I can be guilty of that sometimes because I'm very justice oriented. So like if someone is like bringing something up and they keep saying it, and I'm like, well, what about what you did?
Okay.
Come on now, you're human.
Let me remind you. But let me go back to one thing that you said, and it just sparked my mind about the hurts or the instances that come about. I know forgiveness comes into play, but then also I think about are offenses or hurts, were they intentional or no? So for
Right.
example, if I'm sitting in a row of seats and you walk across me and you step on my foot, and eventually when I go home and I take off these tight shoes and I notice, oh my gosh, just stepped on my foot, my toe is bleeding, my toenail is broke. If I don't tell you, hey, you stepped on my foot and you injured my toe and it was bleeding and it's all swollen, you would never know.
Right.
So my offense to you, my hurt to you was totally not intentional. But if I come through the aisle and I'm like, and I see you and I was like, I'm gonna step on her foot and then I'm gonna smush it and keep on walking, that's intentional hurt.
Right. Right.
And for me, intentional, I have hurt is hurt, but intentional, I have a little, that's a harder pill for me to swallow because
Yeah.
to me, you wanted to hurt me. You intentionally tried to degrade me. You intentionally tried to belittle me. And so you intentionally disappointed to hurt me. And now here we are again in this forgiveness cycle.
Yeah. I think that it is a lot harder when it's premeditated because then it becomes a bit more diabolical.
Premeditated. Yeah.
And for me, I love psychology. I've studied it in different ways over the years for different reasons, with various different resources. But one of the things that I tend to do is I think about motive. Okay, what was the reason why this person did this? Maybe but the way I go through this whole thing, and I can understand, okay, here's their home life. This is how they're treated by their situation. This is how they grew up. This is the environment that they're consistently in. And that kind of leads me back to hurting people hurt
Hurt
people.
people. Yeah, for sure.
And I hate to say this,
Say it. I want you to
but
say it.
I honestly, I think forgiveness is the most humble thing we could ever do. I think it takes a massive amount of humility to look at a person and say, whether premeditated or not, and say, you've hurt me. I don't understand why.
Why? Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can explain. If you're not willing to explain, that's fine. But here's how it made me feel, regardless if that matters to you or not. And that's it. And then I walk away saying, I've done my part. And now the most humble thing I can do, and it takes the greatest degree of, I think, self-control and humility, is to then say, okay, now I know whether that conversation ended positive or negatively or kind of indifferently. Now I know where I stand. And then I can forgive them because now I know where they're at, even if I don't get all the answers I want. Because sometimes the answers you don't get gives you all the
Well,
answers.
the answers that you were looking for. Absolutely. Things not spoken tells me exactly where we stand.
Right. And so we may not always get the gratification we want with the word saying, I'm sorry that I hurt you, or yes, that wasn't right the way that I treated you, or perhaps I didn't consider your feelings. I have a dynamic with a relationship in my world where there's a lot of, it seems like I am the one who's apologizing a lot
All the time.
because and rightfully so in some cases, but I am always wanting to make things right. So like if I didn't communicate properly, or if I flew off the handle, or whatever the case may be, then I am wanting to come back to the table and saying, I didn't handle that properly. I meant what I said, but my messaging was off, kind of thing.
Right.
But then it's not reciprocated. It's always a one-sided thing. And sometimes the things that are happening on the other end are much more egregious than anything I might have done, if you're looking at it from that perspective. But I think in God's eyes, he's like, look, you all are messing up all the time. I'm forgiving you.
And I was getting ready to say that same thing. As many times as we transgress against God, He's still right there every time, open arms. Come on,
Yeah.
baby. Come on, daughter. I forgive you. I love you. And pity patting us and sending us on our way. And what do? That cycle. We do it again and he forgives us again. Come on, daughter. I got you. You my favorite daughter. It's okay. And then he sends us back out there again. And, you know, like
Over
I
and
said,
over. And that
over
leads me, to my next question I wanted to ask, which was there ever a time that you had to ask for forgiveness? And how did you handle that situation? Because, and the reason why I'm going to ask, and the reason why I'm asking you that is because when we go to God for forgiveness, it's very similar to when we approach other people, which is that we are humbling ourselves and saying, I have something that I need forgiveness for. Now, whether we get it from people is another thing. I mean, we can get it from God, but I'm just curious, have you ever had a situation with another person where you had to come to them and ask for forgiveness? And how did you go about doing that? How did you handle it?
this is personal for me. Being divorced, let me see, how many years? My daughter will be 25. Being divorced for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
I never got any closure. There were some things that happened in the marriage that were heartbreaking to me. And my marriage dissolved.
Yeah.
And I walked away with no closure. And years had gone by or whatever. We're not the most cordial people to each other. I'd rather not talk to you another day in my life, but we have children. We have a child together.
Right.
So we're always going to be connected in some shape, form, or fashion. But the thing about
by
it
the
is,
way, I was going to say really fast, by the way, there is so many people that are in that same situation that you just described, whether it was a divorce or they just had a child and they weren't married, that
Mhm.
are exactly in
Same.
that same position. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to point
No,
that
that's
out
okay.
because it's so relevant to so many people.
Yeah. And in every situation, it takes two. Whether your part was just this itty bitty piece or you were the one that totally screwed it all up, it doesn't matter. There needs to be forgiveness on both ends. Both people need some closure. Years had gone by, and I finally asked the question. I said, I don't know what I did to make you do the things that you did to me that hurt me, but whatever it was that I wasn't giving or doing, or what I may have said or didn't say, I'm gonna need you to forgive me. Even though in my heart of hearts, I know I was not the bad guy. I'm not even lying, y'all. But even though in my heart of hearts, I felt as though I was not the bad guy, it takes two.
Sure. Yeah.
And in order for me to be able to move on, I needed to ask him to forgive me for whatever part I played, for real, no matter how big or small. And you talk about a big old grown man balling up, crying in some tears. I love you. I forgive you. Can we make it work? No. But but that forgiveness piece, y'all, it is major.
Yeah.
To this day, if I pick up this phone right now and call and say, hey, our daughter it's a done deal. It's going to happen.
Wow.
So it takes being, like you said, being humble,
Yeah.
being mature, and, because I don't have complete control over that thing. And it can get a little spicy and sassy sometimes. So at the same time, you're in this forgiveness, asking or looking for or accepting forgiveness, you got to ask God to give you the words. Because
Yeah.
if Saus would have went in there with a conversation, baby, we still wouldn't be talking today.
Right. Right.
But you gotta have the words. You know what I'm saying? You gotta
Yeah, I
have the
do. I
words.
do. I do.
And
Yeah.
so that was very hard for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Very hard, because like I said, I ain't do nothing but be a wife and a good mom and in church and handling business for our house. What more do you want?
Yeah.
Like, outside of the other things that come with a marriage.
Right. No, exactly. And I just think thank you for that example, because I think a lot of people deal with that. And I think that again and again, I have this situation in my own life that keeps reoccurring. And part of it's just the stuff I need to work on and how I communicate. But I think that yes, even when you do see there's a disparagement between, you know, the types of levels of action that's being taken that could be deemed offensive, like if a third party were watching and saying, whoa,
Yes.
that was way more
Yeah.
intense than this.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you're still prioritizing saying, okay, regardless,
Yep.
I'm humbling
Regardless.
myself and I'm going to come to you because obviously you're hurt in some way, you're struggling in some way, you're suffering in some type of way.
Both of us. Yeah.
And I'm admitting that I am, because how could I possibly offer this apology or try to make amends without saying, you know, that I've been hurt. But in any case, here I am, and I'm presenting this to you, and I would like to ask for your forgiveness. I think that is one of the most difficult things that another human being can do to another human being, you know, but it is so worth it.
It is.
Because how did we start this conversation? Because you mentioned in the beginning that that burden comes off of you.
It does.
That thing that whatever you were holding, that's really somebody else's burden to hold.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's not yours anymore. It's like handing it back to them and saying, I'm not going to hold this anymore.
That's right. The ball's in your court, and how you want to roll with this.
Yeah.
Now, back to real quick what you said. I know you have something else, but back to what you said really fast. Once we get into that forgiveness stage and we humble ourselves and we're asking for forgiveness, and whether our brother or sister acknowledges and say, you know, Saus, I forgive you, or you're forgiven, or whatever if they don't even do that, like you said, it's like this. It's not on me anymore.
That's right. I have done everything that I can. And
everything.
Yeah, that's right. And I leave you in peace.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So my last question is, it's really kind of a twofold, and we only have a few more minutes actually to chat. So we'll try to make this brief, but why is forgiveness important in your life? And do you feel that it is important to go to God to ask for forgiveness? Because there might be people that are watching this that aren't even Christians that are thinking like, you keep mentioning God, what do I care? You know? So why is it important in your life to forgive? And then also, why do you think it's important to ask God for forgiveness?
Okay. So the reason I believe it's important for me to forgive in my life is because I want to be forgiven. I don't cross every T and dot every I. And I'm gonna need you to show me some grace and extend some mercy to me.
Yeah.
When I'm intentionally being a bad girl and unintentionally, I'm gonna need some forgiveness. I'm gonna need that grace and mercy. So what I'm expecting you as my girlfriend and my friend and my sister in Christ to extend to me, I have to extend that same thing to somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's just point blank. That's why I need it in my life. And going before the Father daily, because I fall short daily. And I'm looking to him to tell me it's all right. Learn from how you fell, where you fell, get back up. Don't do that one again, but I'm gonna need you to move forward because I've forgiven you for that thing. Don't bring it up again. Don't bring it up again because I've forgiven you for that. But I'm gonna need you to move forward, and I'm gonna need you not to do that thing again, and grow from it and learn from it and be mature in my walk with Christ. And I think that forgiveness thing, it's a daily thing for me.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think for me, I mean, we all know when we mess up.
We do.
You know, and I'm the first to say that I can get real hype, like real extra emotional, just like she just went to the moon. Can we pull her back? You know, it's like we don't have time to wait for stuff to rotate. We need to pull you back, you know. And but we know when we mess up, and that feeling of, I remember in recent history, I had a situation where I was trying to convey something that was really important to me. And I said it with a lot of other choice words and with a lot of anger, really,
Emotion.
is how it came across. A very, very intense emotion. And man, I was just flooded with tears and frustration and anger, and just like, wow, how could they not see that? Like it's as
You
clear
were
as
so
day.
passionate. You were so
Yes. And
passionate
it
about
wasn't
it.
even about me, it was defending somebody else. And I just was like, whoa, it was like this tidal wave, you know? And then after, it took me a little time, because actually our nervous systems, not to get too technical, but with our, when we get really intense with our emotions, our nervous system starts to ratchet up, and it produces a lot of adrenaline and cortisol. And so that's
Yeah.
what gets the heart racing and like fight or flight, you know, what am I going to do? Am I going to fight? That's me.
Yep.
Freeze, fawn, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, like right away, like really insincere, or you just
Or
running
totally
away.
flee. Yeah,
Flee.
or totally flee. Yes.
Normally I fight. I'm trying to get to the point where I can kind of remain a little more calm and say, you know what, I'm not willing to discuss this anymore. Maybe we can come back to it later. But anyway, the point is that after I calmed down, I was able to, and just in my little prayer space with God, find the right words to communicate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, I was very passionate about this issue, as you can tell. I didn't mean to communicate it that way. And that apology was received, thankfully. But
Yeah.
it is a journey to continue to forgive and ask for forgiveness. And it is kind of like you said, like a cycle. I like to see it as kind of like just the ebb and flow of life. Like
Ebb and flow.
the waves going out, the waves coming
Waves
back
coming
in,
in.
because we live in a broken world where we're going to keep making mistakes, which is, by the way, why we need God's forgiveness, you know?
Absolutely.
And so the waves are going to go out. I'm going to run after it. I'm going to chase it down.
Then it's going to come back and push
Come back
you
in,
back
push
where
me.
you. Yep.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I just want to say to anybody who's struggling with forgiveness today that if this is something that's hard for you, we understand. I mean, obviously from our
Definitely.
conversation today, we
Definitely.
understand. And we just want to convey to you that it's never too late to forgive. And it is also never too late to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
To somebody that you need to forgive, ask forgiveness for, or to talk to God. Could be 50
Absolutely.
years ago that something happened.
Yeah.
If you're still carrying that burden in your heart, I strongly encourage you, and I know that Sandy would too, to talk to
Absolutely.
God about it. Get it off your chest, even if it's something painful or something that you've been angry about. Talk to God about it, get it out, receive that forgiveness, and then choose to forgive, period.
Choose. It's a choice. And like you said, Jess, go to God. And when you go to God, trust and believe in Him.
Yeah.
And leave it there. Do your
Leave
part.
it there.
But leave it there, because Daddy God, He's going to handle it on your behalf.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say thank you so much.
I love you
For having this conversation with me. I knew that we were going to use up all of our time. We have less than a minute, but I love you. Thank you everyone for watching Just
Absolutely,
Like
you guys.
TV. Meet Saus on the couch when she does her lives on Facebook.
On
and we'll
Sunday.
see you guys next time. Remember, just love inspires.
Toodles.